name is NURHAZWANI. Today I want to, my group will explain about nature sale of good and transfer property and title. So I will transfer to my partner to explain first about nature sales of good, and then I will explain about my slide for transfer property and title and for its concept. So let's go.
Hi everyone, my name is RAIHAN. Okay, today I want sharing to all of you with my presentation about the nature of sale of goods. So, let's roll. Okay, we start with the nature of sale of goods under Sale of Goods Act 1957. Refer to Section 2 SOGA 1957. Every kind of movable property other than auctionable claims and money and stock and share, growing crops, grass, and things attached to or forming part of the land which are agreed to be severed before sale or under the contract of sale. Okay, here we got a few of classification about goods. Okay, first, existing. Refer to Section 6, Clause 1. Goods owned or possessed by the seller. The next one is a future. Refer to Section 2. Goods which are to be manufactured or produced or acquired by the seller after the making of the contract. The next is specific. Section 2. Goods identified and agreed at the time the contract is made. One is uncertain. The goods exist but it's not ascertained yet at the time the contract is made. Here we got three categories about contract. First is goods to be manufactured or grown by the seller. Generic goods, for example, 1,000 tons of wheat. The next one, an identified part of a specific whole. For example, 100 tons out of a particular load of 2,000 tons of wheat. Okay, the last one is ascertain. Goods not ascertained at the time of the contract but become ascertained after selection by the buyer or seller. Okay, that is my presentation about nature of sale of good. Okay, now I will pass my presentation to my friends to sharing about transfer of property and title of the goods.
Hi guys, today our main topic is transfer of property and title of the good. So let's see my slide for an explanation about this topic and the subtopic and those section. Let's go. Okay, short explanation about the concept of property and possession. One should distinguish the concept of property, its ownership, and that of possession. The passing of property in goods does not necessarily mean that possession also passes with it and vice versa. Okay, about the concept of property and possession. Transfer of property in goods. The property in goods is said to be transferred from the seller to the buyer when the latter acquires the property rights. Ownership. The moment the property in good passes, the seller ceases to be their owner and the buyer acquires the ownership. The buyer can exercise the property right over the goods. Okay, risk follows ownership. The general rule is that the risk follows the ownership irrespective of whether the delivery has been made or not. If the goods are damaged or destroyed, the loss shall be borne by the person who was the owner of the goods at the time of damage or destruction. Thus, the risk of loss prima facie is in the person in whom the property is. Okay, next one is action against third party. When the goods are in any way damaged or destroyed by the action of third parties, it is only the owner of the goods can take action against them. Suit for price. The seller can sue the buyer for the price unless otherwise agreed only after the goods have become the property of the buyer. Okay, insolvency. In the event of insolvency of either the seller or the buyer, the question whether the goods can be taken over by the official receiver or assignee will depend on whether the property in good is with the party who has become insolvent. Okay, the next subtitle is essential for transfer of property. The two essential requirements for transfer of property in the goods are: good must be ascertained. Unless the goods are ascertained, they or the property therein cannot pass from the seller to the buyer. Thus, where there is a contract for the sale of uncertain goods, no property in the goods is transferred to the buyer unless and until the goods are ascertained. Okay. Next is the concept of property and possession. Possession in law is acquisition of either a considerable degree of physical control over a physical thing, such as land or chattel, or the legal right to control intangible property, such as a credit with the definite intention of ownership. With respect to land and chattel, possession may well have started as a physical fact, but possession today is often an abstraction. A servant or an employee, for instance, may have custody of an object, but he does not have possession. His employer does, even though he may be thousands of miles from the object he owns. Furthermore, except in the most abstract way, it is not possible to speak of the possession of intangible property. In the development of the civil legal system, possession tended to assume more importance than property rights, and the same is true of the common law system. Thus, possession tends to be regarded as a prima facie evidence of the right of ownership. It gives this right against everyone except the rightful owner. Possession by a finder is sufficient to provide grounds for an action against one who deprived him of the object with no better right than his own. Okay, that's all for my explanation for my side, and I will transfer to my partner to explain to you about section. So let's go.
Hi guys, my name is AMIR FIRDAUS. Today I want to share about passing of property. Okay, today I want to talk about passing of property. A sale of good or property implies a transfer or passing of ownership to the buyer. The passing of property is an important aspect to help determine the liabilities and right of both the buyer and the seller. Once a property is passed to the buyer, then the risk in the good sold is that of the buyer and not the seller. This is true even if the goods are in the possession of the seller. Okay. Let's learn about more. The passing of property is sale of good act. Okay. Passing of property, there are 4 primary rules that govern the passing of property. Number 1 is specific of certain goods. Okay. Number 2, passing of uncertain goods. Number 3, goods sent of approved or on sale or return. Okay. The last one is transfer of property in case of reservation of the right to be supplied. Section 19. This is the first rule of the passing of property. It's deal with the passing of specified goods and state that specific or certain goods pass when intend to pass. Section 19 of the Sale of Good Act 1930 has 3 sections as follows. Number 1, subsection clause 1. Imagine a contract for the sale of specific or certain goods with a clear mention of the time when the parties are to the contract intend to transfer the property. In such cases, the property is transferred at the time mentioned in the contract. Okay, number subsection clause 2, to understand the intention of the parties, the term of the contract, the conduct of the party, and the circumstances of the case are considered. The last one is subsection clause 3, section 20 to 24. The Sale of Goods Act 1930 contain rules to ascertain the intention of the party. This intention is about the time at which the property in the goods will pass to the buyer. Okay, next is section 20. Section 20 related to specific goods in a deliverable state. It states that if the contract in unconditional for the sale of specific goods in a deliverable state, then the property in the goods passes to the buyer in the moment the contract is made. This is a rule holds true even if the time of payment of price or delivery of the goods or both is postponed. Okay, example, Peter goes to an electronic store and buy a television set. He asked the shopkeeper to deliver to his house. The shopkeeper angry. The television immediately becomes the property of Peter. Okay, next is section 21. Section 31, specific goods to be put into a deliverable state. Clause section 31, imagine a contract for the sale of goods where the seller has to do something before the goods are ready for delivery. In such cases, the passing of property happen only after the seller does the things and inform the buyer. Okay guys, that's all from me. I hope it will give you good information and useful to you all. See you in the next video. Ciao.
Okay, now I will move to section 22, section 23 and section 26. Let's enjoy it. Okay, now we move to section 22, Contract Act 1950. Specific goods in a deliverable state when the seller has to do anything thereto in order to a certain price, where there is a contract for the sale of specific good in a deliverable state, but the seller is bound to weigh, measure, test or do some other act or thing with reference to the goods for the purpose of ascertaining the price. The property does not pass until such act or thing is done and the buyer has notice thereof. Next, we move to section 23, Sale of unascertain good and appropriation, where there is a contract for the sale of unascertain or future goods by description and goods of that description and in a deliverable state are unconditionally appropriate to the contract, either by the seller with the assent of the buyer or by the buyer with the assent of the seller. The property in the goods thereupon pass to the buyer. Such assent may be expressed or implied, and may be given either before or after the appropriation is made. Okay, my second point, delivery to carrier, where in pursuance of the contract, the seller delivers the goods to the buyer or to a carrier or other bailee, whether named by the buyer or not, for the purpose of transmission to the buyer, and does not reserve the right of disposal. He is deemed to have unconditionally appropriate the goods to the contract. 16 Laws of Malaysia Act 382. Goods sent on approval or on sale or return. Okay, so now section 26. Unless otherwise agreed, the good remain at the seller risk until the property therein is transferred to the buyer. But when the property therein is transferred to the buyer, the goods are at the buyer risk whether delivery has been made or not, provided that where delivery has been delayed through the fault of either buyer or seller, the goods are at the risk of the party in fault as regard any loss which might not have acquired but for such fault. Sale of goods 17. Provide also that nothing in this section shall affect the duties or liabilities of either seller or buyer as a bailee of the goods of the other parties. Sale by person, not the owner. Okay, that is all about my sharing and my presentation. So thank you for watching and have a nice day. Thank you.
Thank you for hearing our explanation about this topic, and I hope everyone will get more info and understanding about this topic. So, thank you for enjoying our explanation about this topic. So, thank you very much. Bye.